Okay, good morning. My name is Purti, and I'm going to begin my presentation today. The topic is extradition and also the basic principles of extradition and extradition with respect to India. So basically, what is extradition? Various criminals commit certain crimes in particular countries and they run away. As we have seen in Vijay Mallya's case, Nirav Modi's case, all these are extradition cases wherein they have committed crimes in one particular country. In these cases, it is in India, and they have run away to other countries. So, to provide justice to the people who have suffered due to these crimes, okay, the criminals have to be punished. So, they have to be brought back to the countries where the crimes have been committed. So, let us now see the basic principles of extradition. Ordinarily, each state exercises complete jurisdiction over all persons within its territory, but sometimes there may be cases when a person, after committing crimes, runs away to another country. There is a social need to punish such criminals, and in order to fulfill this social necessity, the principles of extradition has been recognized. The widespread practice is returning a person who is accused or has been convicted of a crime to the state in which the crime was committed. So, of course, the criminal has to be punished. So, wherever the person has committed the crime, is alleged to have committed or has been convicted of committing a crime, to that particular country or to the jurisdiction of that particular country, the person has to be brought. So, what is the meaning and definition of the term extradition? Extradition is the delivery of an accused or a convicted individual to the state on whose territory he is alleged to have committed or has been convicted of a crime by the state on whose territory the alleged criminal happens to be there for the time being. So, of course, we know that Vijay Mallya ran away to England, and so he has to be returned back, and various negotiations are going about, and okay, judgments are being passed, and trials are being conducted in various courts. So that he can be extradited to India. So, as per Grotius, it is the study, it is the duty of each state either to punish the criminal or to return them to the states where they have committed the crime. In practice, our states do not accept such an obligation. Under international law, extradition is mostly a matter of bilateral treaty. So, of course, extradition doesn't depend only on one particular state. It is not the choice of a particular state. Of course, two nations are involved in this, and they have to come to a pact. They have to agree upon extradition principles. Okay, so that each country will extradite criminals to one another. Okay, is there a general duty of states in respect of extradition? Is a very general question. So, international law does not recognize any general duty as such of states in respect of extradition. Extradition depends on the provisions of existing extradition treaties. Reference may be made here to the Extradition Act of 1962, which is a very important act which governs the law relating to extradition in India. So now, what is the purpose of extradition? It is very basic, as we know. So if a person commits some crime in a country and to escape punishment flees from that country to another country, then through the process of extradition, such a person is brought to the jurisdiction of that country where he had committed the crime and is tried and punished for the crime. See, there are certain cases wherein certain acts will be considered as crimes in one state, but they might not be crimes in other states. So there is a dilemma regarding this, and all these regulations will be based on the treaties between the countries. Of course, India is also a part of various extradition treaties. Okay, we will look into that. So now, what are the essential conditions for granting extradition or restrictions on surrender? Okay, so extradition mostly depends on treaties among the states. Of course, various states have to enter into treaties for extradition. However, the courts have established certain rules for this purpose. See, these there are certain rules. Okay, the following are some restrictions on surrender of fugitive criminals or essential conditions of extradition. It is not always see, every criminal need not be extradited. Okay, for example, if we see, this is a very general example. See, in case of political criminals, every see a person who is a very patriotic person for in one country will be considered as an enemy by another country. It is always, that is very general. So if a person commits any political crime, he need not be extradited is one such restrictions. So there is always a limit, there is always a boundary wherein you need to stop there. So extradition cannot be unlimited. So there are certain limitations, and these are the main limitations. So these people cannot be extradited. Okay, so non extradition of political criminals, this is a very important principle in international law. That is, extradition of political crimes is not allowed. This is because a person who might be a political criminal in one country might not be a political criminal in another country. Okay, for example, a very general example is that freedom fighters of India will not be considered as criminals of India, they'll be considered to be freedom fighters, but the British considered them to be political criminals. So this is a very point of discussion which involves a lot of dilemma. So, of course, political criminals need not be extradited. Most states refuse to commit themselves to extradite any person charged with a political crime. So, extradition is not allowed for military criminals also. So, of course, military criminals cannot be extradited. Even for religious crimes, persons are not extradited. The rule of okay, and then we have this rule of speciality. Okay, an accused is extradited only for one particular crime. Okay, so only for that crime for which he is extradited. For example, a person has committed a crime with respect so money laundering. For example, we'll take Vijay Mallya. So now so he's if he's if he is accused of money laundering in India, even Nirav Modi for that matter. So uh, now if Vijay Mallya is extradited from okay, we've extradited to India, then he can be punished, he can be tried and punished only for that crime for which he has been extradited. If he had by any chance committed any other crime, then he cannot be tried for that reason. Okay, for on that basis. Okay, so also there is a rule of double criminality. The crime for which extradition is claimed should be crime in both the countries. Okay, this is called the rule of double nationality or double criminality. So see, there is for example, if see, adultery is a crime in India, but it need not be a crime in another country. So for example, if in country B, if adultery is not a crime, then they, for them it is very common. So they do not they cannot extradite the person to India just because it is a crime over here. Okay, there should be sufficient evidence for crimes relating to extradition, a prima facie crime. Okay, it has to be a prima facie crime. That means primarily it has to be a basic crime. Okay, and it has to be proven that it is a crime. Okay, so the terms and conditions mentioned in the extradition treaty of course has to be fulfilled. This being very bilateral, so it has to be fulfilled all the conditions. When a person charged with having been an accessory in a crime committed in foreign state which seeks his extradition, it is not necessary that at the time of the offence the said person must be present in the said foreign state. Okay, even though he is not in that state, eventually if he'll reach that state, then he can be extradited. So of course there are various crimes which can be committed from different places. Now we have an accessibility to so many social media and all of this. This network is not at all an issue in the present day. So there is a lot of accessibility, and because of this, crimes can be committed from any place in the world. So because of this this point becomes very important in the present day. So extradition is generally a matter of bilateral treaty, formal treaty, not it is a formal treaty, not an agreement or notification. So it has to be signed by both the parties, okay, and it has to have specific conditions. It has to be a proper formal treaty, okay. It is not a general agreement. Oral agreements, of course, cannot be accepted because it is between two countries. Okay, so it has to be a formal treaty. Okay, then generally states do not allow the extradition of their own citizens. This is very true. That's why people have, choose this. They will be citizens of other countries, so that of other countries, and if they are in India and they commit any crime, but they are a citizen of another country and they take refuge over there, then they will they won't be extradited. Okay, so then this say, so India is a part of various extradition treaties, and one such important treaty is SARC Accord on extradition. So of course India is also a part of SARC, as we all know. So SARC Accord on extradition is very important for India. On 16th June 1987, the foreign secretaries of South Asian regional countries entered into an agreement on extradition. The draft agreement provided for extradition of persons accused of terrorist acts, but not including the acts of political nature. Okay, later SARC adopted a convention on terrorism in 1987. The convention provides for the extradition of a person accused of terrorist acts. However, there is no such obligation to extradite. Under this convention, six of the crimes shall not be considered as political crimes or crimes inspired by political motives. So these shall not be considered as political crimes. Okay, see, generally we have already seen that political crimes, for that extradition is okay, generally there is no extradition in case of political crimes. These are considered not as political crimes. Okay, so they can be extradited. Criminals who commit these crimes can be extradited because these are not considered as political crimes. They are crimes relating to aircraft hijacking under Hague Convention 1970 on hijacking, crimes under Montreal Convention 1971 on hijacking. These are not considered as political crimes, so they can be extradited. Crimes relating to prevention and punishment of crimes against internationally protected persons. Okay, crimes under any convention under which SARC states are parties. Are under obligation to prosecute or extradite the accused. Crimes relating to murder, assault, making hostage, etc. These are very serious crimes. So they cannot be considered as political crimes or anything, and they have to be extradited. Attempt to aid and advise the crimes, as mentioned earlier, that is relating to hijacking. Okay, so the convention also provides that the member states shall not consider political crimes the crimes concerning violence. Okay, fine. The crimes concerning violence will not be considered to be political crimes. So all these crimes cannot be considered as political or religious or military crimes, and extradition has to be permitted in these in under these circumstances. This is provided in SARC Accord on extradition. India is also a part of this. Okay, South Asian countries. Okay, convention. And okay, India not only has pacts. SARC is not the only Indian pact on extradition. India, being a democratic country and having good relations in various other countries, has pacts with respect to extradition with US, UK, and many other such countries. So there is India UK pact on extradition, Indo US pact on extradition. Basically these acts provide for extradition of criminals who have committed crime in India and have taken asylum in these countries. These are all bilateral treaties. India UK pact, India US pact are all bilateral treaties. Generally it is bilateral in nature. SARC is a multilateral treaty because there are a number of countries involved. Okay, and of course there are various people who take asylum in US UK. Okay, people who have committed crimes in India. So these pacts become really essential. Even now, because this India UK pact comes into picture with respect to Vijay Mallya case. Okay, and this becomes really important, and trials are being conducted in courts of UK. Okay, and this India UK pact on extradition is being taken as a reference also, for convicting, for extraditing Vijay Mallya. Okay, and also there are very important cases on extradition. So the one of the some of the most important cases are extradition of Salim, and then Quattrochi, and extradition of Pinto. Okay, famous cases, Vijay Mallya case, as we all know. Okay, and case of extradition of famous music director Nadeem. Okay, all these are the most important cases, and this is the topic of extradition. And I would like to conclude saying that without extradition, it would not, the world would not be the same place, because uh, all the criminals have to be punished and justice has to be served. Especially in case of extradition, crimes have been committed on a large scale, and various people have been victims of the crimes committed, and of course justice has to be provided. And Because of this, extradition is really important. And that's it. This is my first presentation on the topic of extradition. Thank you. Thank you all.